Of all the teams in the NBA, the Atlanta Hawks find themselves in one of the most precarious situations. On one hand, they have a 25-year-old point guard in Trae Young, who's one of the most offensively gifted players in NBA history. To emphasize just how good Trae is on the offensive end, we compared him to a handful of the best point guards over the past couple decades. One of the first things you'll notice is that Trae Young's career scoring average of 25.5 points per game pops off the charts as by far the highest average of any of the listed players. But on top of that, Trae's 9.5 assists per game also ranks supreme. Historically, numbers like these would put him in MVP discussions. However, nowadays, everyone looks at deeper analytic metrics to determine how valuable players actually are. So is Trae Young just a high-volume but inefficient point guard whose game isn't conducive to winning? Well, let's take a look. When it comes to effective field goal percentage, Trae Young respectfully ranks 4th out of 6, right in between Tony Parker and Chauncey Billups. Not bad, I guess. But what happens when you account for free throws? Trae Young gets to the line way more often than any other listed point guard. More than double as much as Nash or Kidd per 100 possessions, and he attempts 2.6 more free throws per 100 than Chauncey Billups, the player that ranks second in that category. Taking free throws into consideration, we can dig a little deeper than effective field goal percentage and compare each of these legendaries' offensive efficiency by looking at their true shooting percentage instead. And Trae Young is tied with CP3 with the second highest true shooting percentage, trailing only Steve Nash. Remember, we're talking about some of the most efficient point guards in league history, and comparing them to Trae Young, who takes way more shots than any of the other guards we're comparing him to. Pretty darn impressive. For this reason, Trae Young has the highest offensive box plus-minus of the group and the second highest player efficiency rating. So what's all the hate about? An argument could be made that Trae Young's 4.2 turnovers per game is significantly higher than the rest of the players we're comparing him to, but that's partially due to the fact that Trae Young's so heavily involved in his team's offense. It's the same reason why his point and assist totals rank supreme as well. If we look at his turnover percentage per 100 plays, you'll see that he actually turns it over less than Steve Nash and Jason Kidd. There's really no doubting that Trae Young is an elite offensive weapon. With that said, his usage rate compared to these other guards is through the roof. When Trae Young's on the court, there's rarely ever a possession that he's not the focal point of his team's offense. So much so that Trae Young has one of the 5 highest usage rates of any player in NBA history, even higher than Kobe and LeBron. Is that a bad thing? Well, it might cause some chemistry issues because it means that other players on the team are going to be less ball dominant. But it still seems like letting Trae do his thing out there is the best solution for the Hawks on the offensive side of the basketball. Since he's been drafted, the Hawks have been best when Trae Young's usage is at its highest. In 2022, when Trae Young posted the highest usage rate of his career, the Hawks had the second best offensive rating in the league. Defense was the problem, not offense. So they thought that they could trade for DeJounte Murray, a guard lauded for his defensive abilities during his time with the Spurs.
I think it was tough because we're both very unselfish in ways.
Clearly, Murray wasn't the right solution. Murray wasn't only underwhelming on the defensive end for the Hawks, but trying to prioritize him in the offensive attack alongside Trae made the Hawks' offense worse. While Murray was on the team, Trae Young's usage dropped the past couple of seasons, and that drop in usage made Atlanta's offense less dynamic as a whole. That's why the Hawks traded Murray away. They seemed committed to going back to the days where everything went through Trae. But here's the real problem with Trae Young. At this point in his career, all metrics point to him being a historically bad defender. If we hop back to our comparison chart between Trae and those other legendary point guards, we can see that he has the worst defensive box plus-minus and the worst defensive rating of the bunch, by a landslide. His defensive rating has been so poor that despite his immense offensive talents, Trae is the only player on the chart with a negative net rating. In fact, Trae Young has the second worst defensive rating of any NBA basketball player in league history. And the Hawks haven't found the players to complement Trae Young to truly put them into contender status. Since Trae Young was drafted by the Hawks, the team has finished 21st or lower in defensive rating. Last season, in 2024, the Hawks had the 27th ranked defense in the league. These factors contributed to the Hawks missing the playoffs. They weren't amongst the worst teams in the league, but were definitely below average. Through 76 games, they had a 36-40 record before losing their last 6 to finish 36-46. Still, they were more of a middle-of-the-pack team than a bottom feeder. But remember when we said that the Hawks are in a precarious situation right now? Well, we can finally tell you what we mean by that. As most NBA fans know, the Hawks unexpectedly won the NBA draft lottery and received the first overall pick, a selection that often is used on a franchise-shifting young star. But unfortunately, this season, there were no clear-cut stars available even at the top of the draft. At least that's what Trae Young thinks.
Just the outlook on any of these guys coming in, it wasn't like they were going to be Lucas or, you know what I'm saying, type guys.
So the Hawks took a player that they deemed the best available, a 6'9" forward from France named Zachary Rissachet. Rissachet saw his stock climb throughout the season thanks to his length, mature game, and shooting skills. Sounds like a great fit alongside Trae, right? Well, unfortunately for the Hawks, Trae Young has no interest in sharing the offense with Rissachet after the sacrifices he made to play alongside Murray caused his value to drop around the league. Instead, he wants Rissachet to play in a limited off-ball role as a shooter and a defender.
He's 6'10", with frame, like he's a defender, like he didn't have to do much.
So the Hawks are in a weird situation. On one hand, they have an immensely talented player who's still only 25 years old, but it remains uncertain whether or not the Hawks can build a team around him that can compete on the defensive end of the floor. Thus far, no matter who Trae Young had around him, the Hawks have consistently sucked on defense. And while Trae's on the team, the Hawks' best option is to let him handle the rock about as much as any other player in the league. Therefore, it will limit the development of other players on the team, such as their first overall pick, Zachary Rissachet, who's already getting less respect and opportunity than other players who've been drafted in his slot. And on top of that, Trae Young only has 2 more seasons on his contract before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. It's unlikely that Rissachet will be a big enough difference maker to turn the Hawks around this upcoming season, and Trae Young likely won't stick around for long if the team isn't winning. So what are the Hawks management to do? Should they trade away Trae Young and risk watching him shine with another club for the prime of his career? Or should they build around him, hoping he sticks around while the team seems to be in a rebuilding mode? By building around Trae, they limit the ball handling opportunities of the other young players on the team, which might not be the best for their development. Let us know what you think the Hawks should do in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more sports news and insights. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.